And welcome Alysha Naples to the stage for Talk Lost and Found. Yes, an applause.
Before I start, I just want to set the level of saying this is going to have absolutely nothing to do with artificial intelligence, so I don't want to disappoint anyone. I do want to ask you, please, to come up, get closer. I know it's hot. I know the bar's open. I'm so grateful that you're here. I want to just sit down and have an old-timey chat with you guys, if you're cool with that. All right. You're going to have to forgive me for checking my notes every now and then, but this content is really important to me, and I want to make sure that I do it a good service. So, throughout history, explorers and dreamers like us have looked to technology to make a better world. That's why we're all here today. We all want a better world for ourselves and for everyone. And so we've come here to Oslo to dream together about what that could look like. Oh, clicker. I knew I was forgetting something. Okay. Technology can be powerful and transformative, and the tech revolution of the last 25 years has touched nearly every aspect of our lives. It's given us a great deal to be excited about, but the end result of innovation is not technology. The end result of innovation is what technology does to us as individuals and to our societies. Tech moves a lot faster than societal evolution does, and sometimes the effects aren't felt until a long time later. So how can we predict the effects that technology will have on our society? Well, there's a great clue to be found in the cultures that created the technology. When you put a product or service out into the world, it is holding up a mirror to the culture that created it. And I think it's really clear to everyone at this point that the culture of tech, especially that in Silicon Valley, which is where I have come from, is not necessarily one that's inclusive, balanced, or sustainable. So when you take a culture that falls somewhere between homogeneous and toxic, when you accelerate it to a breakneck speed and then talk about success only in terms of engagement and growth, it should not be surprising to anybody that what we're dealing with right now is a ton of unintended consequences. What we're dealing with right now is a world out of balance. And frankly, we're in a bit of a mess. Recently, a lot of people who took part in the early years of tech have sort of come out and said that they feel bad about the things that they put out into the world. And this hindsight is great. They're saying that they were so blinded by optimism that they never really thought about how things could be exploited. But at the same time, our largest platforms that we interact with every day are still continuing to prioritize engagement and growth over safety and truth. And as they do this, they continue to push us further into ideological echo chambers, and they're widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And so that is why it is so important that we talk about technology in the future with a critical eye. Looking to the tech industry to clean up the mess that the tech industry itself created is a bit like asking the raccoons who went through your garbage to put it all back in. We need to come to terms with the fact that the economic model that got us into this situation is not going to be capable of getting us out of it. We need to shift our priorities, and we need to try something new. So there's a lot of really good tech out there. There are innovations that have given us richer, fuller lives. There are breakthroughs that have given us new perspectives and raised our consciousness. For example, the Hubble telescope has shown us where we, as a planet, fit into the whole universe. This little girl was born with an undeveloped right hand. 10 years ago, she would have had to wait until she was an adult to have a prosthetic. But now with 3D printing, she can have a new hand made every 6 months. And she calls it her robo-hand, to throw out the first pitch at the World Series last year. And digital platforms like Bandcamp and Patreon have given artists a platform to interact more directly with their audience, expanding their reach and giving them the freedom to make art on their own terms. These are fantastic things. But at the same time, these are all small players. When we look at the bigger platforms that we interact with in tech, it gets a lot more complicated. Let's take Twitter. Twitter is a platform that has simultaneously allowed citizens to protest and overthrow corrupt governments, but it also gave rise to Gamergate. It also gave rise to neo-Nazis. Does the good that Twitter has done outweigh the bad, or vice versa? Quick water break. Twitter, Google, and Facebook give us a ton of stuff, ostensibly for free. But like everything that seems like maybe too good of a deal to be true, this is another one. They make almost all of their money by compiling a psychographic profile of their users. They are harvesting your data when you interact with their profiles, and then they are selling it to companies that buy ads. They do this. The more detailed their profile, the more valuable their information that they can sell. So what they need from you is your attention. Unless you buy ads, you are not Facebook's customer. You are Facebook's product. Our lives are determined by what we put our energy into, and our energy is put into things via our attention. Attention is an enormously valuable resource that is being co-opted and exploited by our current economic model. Products that are designed and developed to be addictive and attention-grabbing are unhealthy, period. They harm our psychological well-being, and they ultimately dehumanize us. As long as the tech industry continues to value platform growth over personal growth and engagement over utility, as long as most of our tech is exploiting the finite resource that is our time and attention, people are going to become understandably a lot less likely to trust it. So what this means is the negative consequences of the tech we're dealing with right now can actually prevent positive consequences down the road. How excited do you think people are going to be about blockchain if Bitcoin fails? We have grown far too complacent about the technologies that reduce the identities of human beings into profiles that can be bought and sold. A future in which our information is being bought and sold for the purpose of convincing us to buy things that we do not want or need is not a future in which anybody is thriving. It's not a coincidence that dehumanizing products have come out of dehumanizing cultures. As I said before, your products reflect your values and culture, and the adoption of your products are propagating your values and culture out into the world. This is exactly the same way as when you raise a child, that the child takes on the values of its parents and the society it was raised in. There is no chance that your product is going to make the world a better place if the people who built it are miserable. Working 60-hour weeks does not make you a rock star, it makes you burn out. And given the complexities of the technological systems that we're all grappling with, it can be really seductive to think of the human being at the end as the easy part of the equation, especially when you have a detailed psychographic profile of them. But this is really problematic. We are more than a collection of our likes. We cannot be adequately described by data alone. Every single person is significantly more complicated than any product we have ever made. People are three-dimensional objects, and those three dimensions are the body, the mind, and the heart. The bulk of the data that we collect on people exists only in one of these dimensions, the dimension of the mind, and that is because it is the most easily quantifiable. By doing this, we ignore the body, and we ignore the heart, and that is why we are stuck in a world that is out of balance. This is deep and pervasive. This is tied completely to the economic model that I discussed at the beginning. Profits are what's valued. Data is what can be sold. Therefore, data is imbued with value. But this is really important. The things that are most valuable to us, I'm talking about love, fulfillment, and connection, these are not things that can be quantified. These are not things that can be sold. We've continually prioritized our mind over our bodies and our hearts, and that is why we're in this mess right now. The effects of our passion for the material and the measurable can be felt throughout our societies. We've replaced philosophy, the love of wisdom, with a desire for simple facts. We've replaced introspection with, what have we? By focusing only on what can be automated and aggregated. By devaluing subjective and personal knowledge, we have been left in a state of alienation from ourselves and from nature. Our greatest human achievements have not come from the realm of the brain alone. The things we have made that are lasting happen when people show up as bodies, minds, and spirits, as complete three-dimensional objects, and make something that is universal and beautiful and true. The prioritization of the mind over and often at the expense of the body and the heart is the first thing we have to learn to correct as we go forward. Because a future where all humans thrive is not a future that can be quantified. And even further than that, a future where all of humanity thrives is our species' best hope for survival. The big problems we're facing, climate change, water shortages, nuclear war, these are not things that are going to be solved with our brains alone. We need to learn to think with all that we are, with our bodies and our hearts. We need to let our minds dream and connect patterns while our bodies move and dance and our hearts feel and love. And it is when all these things come together that we will support the totality of who we are as human beings. And then, and only then, will we be able to thrive. So if your work relies on the exploitation of humans, whether it's labor in a factory or attention on your application, the work that you are doing is not going to support this vision. It will not bring you happiness, and it will not help us to thrive. We need each other. Each person's future is tied to every person's future, and every person's future is tied to the planet's future. We can no longer be blind to the fact that we are wrecking the planet and that we are wrecking our only chance for survival. We cannot destroy it without destroying ourselves. The scope of these issues can feel really overwhelming, and it's tempting to think that such large problems have to have equally large solutions. But just as the culture that created products is reflected in the products, how fulfilled you are in your life is directly proportional to the impact that you can have. The fulfillment that we experience allows us to actually make meaningful change in the world. So if you want to change the world, you have to start with yourself. When we're unfulfilled, we feel empty, and emptiness feels terrible. So we look for something to fill the emptiness. This is called numbing. Social media is the most socially acceptable of our numbing agents, but it is far from the only one. When you check Twitter, you get a quick hit of dopamine that makes you feel good if you see that somebody liked your tweet. But what you're actually doing is minimizing the connection you have to people in the real world. This ultimately leads to more emptiness, which keeps the whole cycle rolling. When you are unfulfilled, you go into situations saying, "What about me?" instead of looking for ways to be of service. Until you are able to take responsibility for your own fulfillment, you will be stuck in this numbing and emptiness cycle, and your presence will not have the same impact. Your actions will be prone to leading to unintended consequences. Fulfillment asks you to focus on what really matters to you, to your body, to your mind, and to your heart, and to set aside unrealistic ideals and perfectionism in order to be authentic to your true self. And to get there, you need to let go of your baggage and remember that real freedom is not the freedom to pursue your petty, trivial desires, but freedom from your petty and trivial desires. Investing your time and attention in fulfillment gives you more in exchange than just money. It gives you the opportunity to actually be of service. Following your own path means taking care of your own needs first. Then, lacking nothing, you can actually help. This commitment to service models the sort of behavior to your families and to your communities to follow their own paths. Living authentically travels in ripples. It is exponential, and it moves like memes. It takes a significant amount of courage to live an authentic life. I'm not going to lie to you about that. It means disappointing other people because it means letting go of their expectations for you. But if you're not willing to disappoint other people, you're going to disappoint yourself. And disappointing yourself feels like emptiness, and we know what that leads to. By not being willing to disappoint other people in behalf of your own authenticity, you are actually diminishing your own impact and your own ability. Our 21st century problems require us to stop focusing on our differences and start working together, to stop wanting to be right and to start wanting to be useful. A future where all of humanity thrives is one that honors the shared dreams of humanity while celebrating the differences and the strength that comes through them. This will create room for everyone to contribute because the problems that we're solving won't be solved by Europe or the industrialized world alone either. Every demographic has something to give. Every person has something to share. And we need to leverage everybody's abilities and perspectives. Only then can we face this mess together and work together in a way that understands that what is right for me might not be wrong for you, or might not be right for you. And that's not just okay, it's actually great, because it is those differences that give us strength as a species. We are not lemmings, we are not sheep, we are not data, we are not commodities, and we do not have to continue to be raccoons. We are beautiful and imperfect, three-dimensional chaotic beings that are capable of great love. And together, we can be more than the sum of 7.5 billion parts. We're facing a crisis and yearning for change. The movement we need will be led by the people who have the courage to invest in fulfillment and their communities. The movement we need will occur when love spreads like a meme. That's my kind of exponential tech. Thank you so much for your attention.